Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening, great scholars and great leaders. Thank you so much for joining us again tonight. My name is Majola. I'm from the Worldwide Institute of Leadership and Development. We develop leaders, we empower leaders, we produce world-class leaders because we have realized that if we can fix leadership, most of our challenges, if not all of them, will be arrested and resolved, because leadership is everything, and everything is leadership. We meet here every Wednesdays as scholars from different universities or different institutions. We've got leaders from all walks of life, we've got politicians here, we've got members of the media, we've got executives from public sector, from private sector, community leaders, religious leaders, professionals from all walks of life. We meet, we are a community of leaders. We come here to learn, to unlearn, to relearn, and to co-learn, because leadership is a journey. Leadership is not a destination. As long as you want to be a great leader, you've got to constantly develop yourself until you go to the grave. That's what we believe here at Wild. So thank you so much for joining us. Let me welcome our members, our regulars, men and women who are with us almost every Wednesdays or as often as they can. As you know, we learn a lot from each other. We call this our master classes. We've got students who are studying with our universities at a postgraduate level. They come here, they learn a lot every Wednesdays. Yes, so yeah, if you're a leader, you belong here. But a special welcome to those colleagues who are joining us for the first time. If you are here for the first time, thank you so much. Please do feel at home. This is a safe space. This is where leaders meet other leaders, as I said. Really, it's a community of leaders. So you belong here. So do participate. Don't feel diffident. It's good to listen and to learn from other people, but also would like to learn from you. So yeah, I mean, if there's any thing or you want to share with us, you do share with us. So the program is that we introduce the speaker, and then the speaker will address us, and we don't interrupt the speaker while he's still addressing us. Once she has done her speech or her address, then we can engage with her, and also we can engage with each other, because this is a conversation, and everyone who's here, it's a leader. So yeah, thank you so much for joining us, and please do participate and do enjoy yourself. Tonight we are hosting, actually this month of August, we are celebrating our Women's Month, as we always do, and the whole of this August month we are really celebrating and also hosting powerful women leaders every Wednesdays. But also we are preparing for our launch, our new book launch, which will take place next week, Friday. It's next week, Friday, on the 29th of August. It will take place at SNG Grandthornton in Midrand. It's called The Power of Women in Leadership. It's contributed by 30 contributors, scholars, great leaders from all walks of life. Most of them are here in this platform. Men and women. It's so interesting and so good that it's not only written by women, but also there are powerful authors who are males who have written it. I've put it together, I've compiled it, and I've published it. And that is the foreword is by Tsakane Maluleka, the Auditor General. Powerful book, very good book. It will be launched the next week, Friday. So that's what we are doing in this month, and we are so happy that in this platform we are producing powerful things like this. Obviously, it's not our first book. We've done now one, Leaders in Leadership, two, three. I think this is our fourth book. Our colleagues will, will remind me or will correct me, but I think it's our fourth book now, emanating from this platform of scholars and of leaders. Tonight we are hosting my sister. Very, very busy, but I'm so humbled and I'm so grateful that really she has made time. We've been, hunting her for a couple of months now, if it's not the whole year. But she's a very busy person, and I really, I was talking to her earlier on that someone has told me that she will be talking in Bloemfontein tomorrow, so she's busy, she's everywhere. But already the fact that she has accommodated us because we respect her a lot, we admire her a lot, we love her a lot. That's why we kept on knocking and say, please, when are you coming? When are you coming? When are you coming? Because obviously we know that really would have loved her to address our platform. And that is Dr. Brenda Kubega Chauke. And most of you know her. She's a managing director of Health IQ Consulting. Also, she is a medical doctor by profession. She's a physician executive and a bioethics scholar. So we are so humbled and we are so grateful that she could make time to come and be with a community of leaders tonight. Sis Brenda, thank you so much, my sister. Really, as I've said, that I know how busy you are. And I think almost most of the people who are here, they know how busy you are. And thank you so much for indulging us and also for accommodating us. You can address us now. We are waiting for you. Thank you, sis.
Okay, no, thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me. And it's a pleasure, especially it is a Women's Month. So I want to take this opportunity to wish all, the women on the platform a happy Women's Month. And because I come from healthcare, I will tell the women that they are number one when it comes to using health services, not just in South Africa, but globally. And then secondly, research has actually proven that patients that are being taken care of by women health professionals actually have better clinical outcomes and they do better. So I'm not being sexist, that's research that is actually, stating that. So tonight I am going to be talking about responsible leadership in the artificial intelligence era and then lessons from health services or the health sector. So I am not going to turn you into health professionals overnight, but I think either all of us are, or some of us are patients today. If not today, tomorrow it's guaranteed that will be patients. So I'm hoping that you will take interest in some of the things that we are going to discuss. So these are my disclosures. And then this is the agenda for this evening. I took an academic approach, so we always define things before we talk about them. So that's why I chose to use the slides. So firstly, it's starting on defining responsible leadership and what it is. So responsible leadership basically is the practice of making ethical, sustainable, and socially conscious business decisions that create value for all stakeholders, not just for the shareholders. So if we talk about stakeholders, that will include the community, and that will also include people that buy from the business, and also businesses and populations where the resources actually get sourced from. So if we look at ethical leadership and the 4 pillars of ethical leadership. So the first one is basically ethics and integrity, which is about making the right decisions, doing the right things, and it actually goes beyond compliance because it talks about the character also of a leader and the commitment to doing the right thing at all times. And secondly, it's the stakeholder inclusion, which talks to considering the impact of business decisions on all groups of stakeholders. So if we think of let's say, a manufacturing plant that will have its waste actually polluting the water, there's living beings in the water, your fish and everything else, and plants. And then also there are people who rely on, that water to actually drink from, and some of the animals. So it is basically going beyond the business and making sure that all stakeholders are included, and whatever that benefits them and harms them actually is taken into account when decisions are made. And then the third one is sustainability, which is prioritizing long-term health over short-term gains. With health, I'm not talking about the biology, but the health of the business as well, and then the health of the environment as well. So I took this quote that says, "We don't inherit the earth from our ancestors, we borrow it from our future children," which basically talks to what do we owe future generations. And then the last one is transparency and accountability. So if leadership is about responsibility, so that goes hand in hand with accountability. But the importance of transparency and being open about how, as a business, decisions are made, etc., that is one pillar of responsible leadership. So if now we take it to South Africa, I'm not going to reflect on leadership in the country and where we're at, but just looking at structurally, what do we have that is supposed to be holding us together? Whether it is holding us together right now or not is a question for another day. So the first one is the Constitution. So if we look at the constitutional values in South Africa, so the values of dignity, human dignity, equality, human rights, freedom, and non-racism and non-sexism, which basically talks into inclusion and non-discrimination. We also have human rights that we need to ensure that as business leaders, we uphold human rights, and when we make decisions and whether it's adopting new technology, etc., that human rights are always protected and not violated. And then lastly, I mean, we wouldn't be in Africa if I did not touch, or I do not touch on Ubuntu. And basically, Ubuntu talks to humanity. I mean, we're all human, and everyone deserves to be respected, irrespective of where they come from, their education level, etc. And the fact that we are a community and we are interconnected, so sometimes we make decisions and we forget that interconnectedness, that some decisions, especially that harm people, they may also harm the people that we love that are not in our protected spaces. So solidarity as well, and we come from a very highly unequal country. So solidarity also is quite important when we think of responsible leadership, especially using Ubuntu as the foundation, especially as African leaders. So when we look at South Africa, I always call inequality as the cancer because, it starts small and it grows. And if we look at inequality, South Africa is the most highly unequal country globally, especially when it comes to income. And also the country that has, this inequality that has increased more than any other country in the world. So this cancer of inequality is an elephant that we see, that we all see every day, and it has an impact in people's lives, and also businesses have to take cognizance of this cancer and how it also impacts on the environment. So, because I come from healthcare, we always diagnose. And so we're going to talk about some of the, we'll call them signs and symptoms of inequality in South Africa. So if we look, compare and contrast the public health system and the South African socio-economic context in general. We look at the public health system, high burden of disease. We talk about whether it's communicable diseases like your TB, etc., and then lifestyle diseases like hypertension and more. And then we look at the South African context. There's high unemployment. There's workforce shortages in the public health system, where we find that there are more health professionals and also specialists in the private sector compared to the public sector. On the other side, there's also issues of cheap labor and exploitation, as we see almost every day in the news, and what is currently topical right now. And when we talk about the digital divide, which has an impact, if we look at the public health system, on if we roll out digital initiatives, who are we actually excluding from benefiting from those, technological solutions? And then issues around skilled labor, etc. There's inequality on both sides. I've already mentioned the access to specialized care. If you look at the country and the issues around education and inequity, and specifically around the quality of education in the public versus the private sector, and also the push and pull factors that make also good educators to, leave the public sector and go to the private sector. And then in the public health system, the demand actually exceeds the existing capacity, and the system actually serves 80% of the population of the country. And if we look at the private side, the medical aids account for about more than 20% of medical expenditure or healthcare expenditure, and yet it only serves less than 20% of the population. So this is just painting a picture regarding inequality, and why I also think it's important to compare and contrast, so that as leaders also you have an understanding of what this is. If we talk about inequality, so there is a price that countries with high income inequality actually pay. And some of it is related to the health of the people, which we normally call population health. So in these countries, there is evidence that shows that there's a high level of erosion of social cohesion. So issues around crime, etc., and social support. And then the increased burden of disease. If we think of the high levels of stress, whether because of unemployment or people are worried about, crime levels, etc., that has a biological effect of causing chronic inflammation. That's why we see the high levels also of obesity as a result of chronic inflammation. So your diabetes and your hypertension also are linked to that. So I'm trying to link what is happening outside of the healthcare space and how it actually looks from a healthcare perspective. So the countries will have high levels of teenage pregnancy and high mental health burden, substance abuse is high, homicide is high. And then there is social mobility, which is about moving from one class to a higher class, but only limited to a smaller percentage, resulting in classism. So these are the things that are evident, even if you're not working in the healthcare space, but that are evident when it comes to how inequality also impacts on people. So I am going to, I know that we understand what health is, but I thought let me define it because more often than not, we are not starting from the same page, especially if we're talking to people that are outside of the healthcare environment. So health is not just the absence of diseases or sicknesses, etc., but it's all about that good balance on physical health, emotional health, social health, etc. But importantly is that when people are in good health, they can actually take advantage of opportunities that present themselves, whether we're talking about educational opportunities or employment opportunities, etc. Just think of someone that has major depression that is not being treated or being attended to because of no access to mental health professionals, etc. That individual will not have the drive, the energy, etc., to actually go out and look for work, even if they met the criteria for a job that's advertised somewhere. But because they are not in a good wellness position, they will not take advantage of that. So that is why we also need to look at health as justice, and also health as critical because it does protect normal functioning of people. I mean, you think of people that live with some physical disability, they have a lot of loops to jump for them to take advantage of opportunities that are just available, to most people that are differently abled. So looking again, I'm painting the picture of South Africa and why it matters that in the era of AI, we have responsible leaders, and also leaders are aware of what they need to take into account when making decisions, coming up with solutions, adopting AI, and deploying it, etc. So there's what we call social determinants of health, which basically we're saying that the health of the people is a result of where they work, it's a result of where they stay, where they are born, where they play, etc., etc. And then when it comes to what we call the lotteries of life, if you think of education, children don't choose where they attend school. It's basically the parents. If the parents are poor, that will have an impact of where, of the choices actually the parents have when it comes to the child's education, or maybe even the quality of education. And then if we're talking about the lotteries of biology, so it's basically, issues of age, gender, etc. We have no control over that. That basically comes with, when we're born and God chooses who we become, etc. And then around disability, then there will be those individuals that are born with some form of disability, whether it's blindness, etc., etc. So importantly, that 80% of health happens outside the healthcare system. So if that is the case, so it means there is a lot that leaders in businesses need to be aware of, and also maybe take a little bit of responsibility when it comes to that understanding of what the impact of the workplace and, etc., has on people's health. So I'm not going to go through these definitions, but basically, if we talk about health disparities, it's just the unequal distribution of these social determinants of health. Obviously, for someone who stays in an informal settlement, they don't have access maybe to water, they don't have access to, let's say, dependable clean water, maybe they don't have access to parks and places to walk when they're frustrated, compared to someone that stays in Sandton that can actually, have access to a park, can go to the gym, etc., and manage, some of those emotions using non-medical interventions. And then when it comes to health inequities, we'll just talk about the access to care that is a result of the systemic differences. Again, people in rural areas don't have the same access to the same services like people that stay in township and also in suburbs. So those are the differences between the disparities and the inequities. So yes, we believe that AI has a significant role to play when it comes to bridging the gap. One, whether we're talking about improving access, improving access, or maybe even tackling the social determinants of health, which is outside the healthcare space. So I am not going to define AI. I'm assuming that most of us understand what AI is, but the most important thing is that it mimics the problem-solving abilities or capabilities of a human mind. So there are benefits of AI when it comes to healthcare. So you can imagine the automation and quick decision making. And because, I mean, they say for a medical doctor to stay up to date, they have to read at least 21 articles every day. Looking at the advances in healthcare and how much of the new information actually gets out there. So it's impossible for an individual to be on top of all that. So AI does play a significant role when it comes to assisting with clinical decision making because it computes all this information and makes a recommendation. It can improve access and also, provide personalized care. We know now that people respond differently to different antibiotics, to different kinds of, cancer medication, etc. So the quality and safety also will improve. We've seen that with AI, there's now faster discoveries of new drugs, etc. It can actually reduce cost when it comes to accessing care, like using AI robotic surgery, etc. It can improve population health, advance equity, improve patient engagement, and again, importantly, the role that it plays in research and training. I mean, talking about us, we are also a training organization. What we used to spend coming up with a training material for a particular module, we have cut it down by almost 80%. So you can imagine even the cost related to that, etc., etc. So when we look at AI in healthcare, we say AI must aim for, obviously, all the things that I've mentioned before, but importantly, it's reducing the health disparities. So how do we use AI to increase access, to reduce cost of healthcare, and also to take better care of the vulnerable populations, like, for example, elderly people and people who stay in rural areas, etc. But all in all, AI must also improve the work-life balance of health workers. Same as in business, we also advocating that, that the introduction of AI should not harm the well-being of the employees, whether mentally, and otherwise. So if we look at the impact of AI, the benefits and the risks in general, so if we look at one, it's the ethical pillar, which is AI should preserve autonomy. At the end of the day, people must make decisions about what they get involved in, about how their information is shared. They must be aware how their information is going to be processed as well. So issues also around privacy, and also taking into account that AI can also enable, the violation of privacy if, the safety measures are not taken care of. And then that AI must benefit the people, so it must do more good than harm, and or reduce harm. That should be the aim. And then the fairness, which is justice, basically looking at the deployment of AI should not disadvantage one group and perpetuate, disparities. For an example, let's say it's the deployment of an HR tool that, assists with recruitment, it sorts the CVs, etc., etc. So if the tool is not just, It will eliminate people who are not, maybe let's say the English language, maybe there's errors, it will eliminate those. Maybe it's universities that the developers don't actually recognize. So all those people from those particular universities will be excluded, automatically because of how the system has been designed. And then the legal one is looking at how AI also advances human rights and making sure that it doesn't violate human rights, like POPIA and the example that I gave about privacy. And then the social impact is also looking at, obviously, social impact can be positive or negative. Positive, there's new jobs. And if we think of healthcare or industries where human touch is quite important, it can actually allow those professionals to spend more time with their clients versus spending a lot of time on mundane admin stuff, etc., etc. And then it can also reduce, disparities. And then the negative impact issues around maybe the sustainability and maybe job losses and issues around, language. That's why it's also important that African languages are also well developed when it comes to AI and large language models. So it can have that negative impact. But again, it's that awareness of, the benefits are there and we appreciate those, but you also need to keep in mind that with receiving the new innovations and AI, there are risks that are coming with that need to be taken care of. So I'm not going to go through the whole table, but what this table is trying to show is that if we look at AI, the first thing is when we adopt and deploy, what problem are we trying to solve? So if, for example, we're talking about improving population health, if we're talking about improving population health, the health of the population in the country, it means that we need to be looking at the upstream factors, which is where people stay, issues around the water, water supply, issues around, safety that also make people to be anxious, etc., etc. So it's just addressing at that level, what are these policies that we need to have in place? Yes, we have the Constitution, the Bill of Rights that actually prescribes that everyone should have access to clean water. But are we really having, is everyone having access to dependable and clean water? As a country, yes, we're doing well, but what are these policies that are required to protect those that are vulnerable, maybe that don't have? So it's just showing that downstream, we could be looking at the individual, which is the individual benefits. If it comes to healthcare, it could be, let's say, patients with diabetes. What care coordination models are there, to benefit the patient, to reduce the cost, etc. But it's just focusing on the patient. It's not focusing on how much sugar do we have in the bread that is sold in South Africa? How much sugar do we have in the drinks or salt we have in, in different food items? So basically, it's here, the aim was just to show the difference between what are we solving downstream and where should we be focusing on. And also, again, if we're looking at deploying AI, let's say we're deploying AI to reduce unemployment, for whatever reason. The first question is, okay, how is it going to do that? And then secondly, is it sustainable when we see that, there's so much automation that is happening all around us? Should we not be looking at upstream as okay, how can we use AI to increase access to quality education? It doesn't matter where you are in the country, your social status and your economic status, etc., etc. And then when it comes to the challenges of AI, it also has to do with the biases that are in the algorithms. So these algorithms are designed by people, and some of their biases may be also designed into these algorithms. So basically, there's always that probability that there will be some amount of bias because of the existing inequities that we have. The fact that we also don't understand each other, we have stereotypes, etc. So those may be also built into the algorithms, and that having an impact on the society and the users, etc., etc. So we'll go through some of the examples in the health sector that highlight the risk associated with algorithms. So if we look at some of the examples, like millions of Black people affected by racial bias in healthcare algorithms. This includes, the tools, AI tools that are used to screen for skin cancer. So these tools that were tested were not able to pick up the risk of cancer on darker-skinned people because they were not trained on darker-skinned people. They were trained on lighter-skinned people. So obviously, the tool already designed out darker-skinned people. So the issues of bias are quite important because not all, actually most of the biases that are built into the AI tools are not designed intentionally because most people are not even aware of their biases. Hence, there is an importance that there must be some ethics guidance tool or training that gets provided to to the developers that work on those algorithms. So these are just some of the examples. And then gender and health disparities. Again, the question is who designed the tool, and maybe even who designed the medical curriculum. If we think of a heart attack, they present differently, myocardial infarction, I'll call it a heart attack, differently in females and in males. But all along, the training has been focusing on how it presents in males, that leading to most women being, one, they're underdiagnosed and then having the worst clinical outcomes. Again, it is around the diversity of the team when it comes to developing some of these AI tools. And then the impact of AI in the society. I'm not sure if you remember early this year, an executive from the US that is a CEO or was a CEO of a health insurance company, the equivalent of a medical aid company in South Africa, that was shot by one of the beneficiaries that believed that the AI tool actually denied care for him. And it wasn't just him. There was a lot of patients that actually came forward with rejections that actually did not make sense, but because of the AI tools that were deployed. And just imagine that the anger escalated so much to a point where it compromised the security or the safety of the CEO. So again, we're talking about responsible AI. So it's not just the deploying and the using AI tools, but also the people that work behind the scenes. So this is recent that showed that Kenyan data workers risk their mental health to train AI tools. One, it's those that were training AI tools, and two, those that were monitoring and checking for like explicit material online and removing it, etc., that it affected them so much that some of them suffered major depression, they divorced, etc., because of what they were being exposed to. So it is not just about the deployment, but also the people that work with the tools. And if we think of the slide that I shared earlier on, that the AI tools must also improve the work-life balance of people that are working with it. And then these are the latest, the AI tools that are also causing harm on children. And, there's a case of a young man that committed suicide because he developed a relationship with a chatbot, etc., etc. So these are some of the harms that we need to be aware of as, business leaders, and also just as a society as well. And recently, also, the issue around medical aids and the accusation that they are discriminating against, non-white, health professionals. And it was proven that the AI tool actually also perpetuated that. So again, it's that responsibility that is required for leaders to look at what is the benefit, and with that benefit, what are the risks, the legal risk, social risk, and ethical risks that may come with that too. So this is an example that pulse oximeter, most of us bought them during a COVID pandemic. In medical aids, we're paying for them to check whether your oxygen levels were low and you needed to go to a hospital or not. What was disturbing, highlighted during the pandemic, was that the pulse oximeters also were not sensing the low levels of oxygen in darker skinned people. So basically, it meant that the people who got ICU beds and who got, supplemental oxygen by mask or whichever way, were people with fairer skin. And the clinical outcomes of darker skinned people was worse because of that. And also in the US, it was the same thing, but worse in the US because they also use AI that was fed by these digital devices to make decisions of allocating high care beds and ICU beds and specialized hospital based on these figures that were not accurate because they were the pulse oximeters. Its sensitivity is not the same in depending on the skin tone of the patient. So this was quite interesting, which showed that AI tools excelled at medical board exams, but stumbled in real-world conversations. This basically highlighting that, yes, we can use technology, AI tools, but at the end of the day, human beings are psychosocial beings. So it's also important to connect the dots and be able to read, whether we're talking body language and things that people do or say, and also that understanding of connecting the patient's history, understanding their culture, and how that maybe would influence their, health-seeking behavior, etc., etc. So this I like to show to the medical professionals, because every time we get told that we are going to be obsolete and AI will take over and look after patients. So again, there are limitations that as business leaders also it's important that we are aware of those. So when it comes to responsible AI, whether in healthcare or in any sector, it must be human-centered. And it must uphold human rights, ethical values, and promise keeping. So when we're talking about promise keeping, we should also be able to explain how it makes decisions, etc. And then the risk and benefits must be shared. It must be sustainable. And then we must focus on the upstream factors, which is addressing issues around, policy, etc. So why is human oversight important? So I used AI to come up with this picture. And if you look at it at the bottom, it has two solidarity is typed, is there, it's showing twice. Then I told AI that you've made a mistake. You mentioned solidarity twice. And then here's the response. Here's the corrected version of Ubuntu image. Now with each concept only mentioned once, but solidarity is still there twice. So again, just a reminder that there is value and a compelling reason to ensure that AI has some human oversight, to take care of its shortcomings. So why responsible leadership matters in the AI era? One, to attract and retain talent. If you look at the Gen Zs and the millennials, they want to work in environments that align with their values and do work that has purpose, and then build customer loyalty. And then customers, they trust ethical brands. And then it drives innovation, because if we look at solving social problems, we can come up with different business models and different new and innovative products and services. And then it's important, again, to lead responsibly to mitigate risk. Imagine, issues around scandals and the fines associated with that, and you deploy a tool, and the tool is discriminating, one group, and that will have an impact on the image of the organization and maybe having to account in court as well. And then issues around long-term profitability and sustainability of the business. So key messages: the future is digital. AI benefits should always outweigh the risk. And then we should aim for AI that advances humanity and be aware of biases. So we need to make sure that the teams are as diverse as we can possibly can. And then because we come from low, medium income countries and we have issues that related to unemployment, etc. So we are vulnerable and easy to take on some of the solutions without thinking of the possible risk. And then responsible leadership underpins responsible AI, and social scientists are quite crucial when it comes to AI. Your ethicists, your language specialists, etc., etc. So in conclusion, responsible AI leadership is a strategic advantage, and it's built on the foundation of ethics, transparency, and the long-term view, so issues around sustainability. And it's all about creating value for all stakeholders, and it's important that leaders take thoughtful action, are aware of the ethics around AI, and also the accountability that actually comes with that. So from my side, that is the end of my presentation, and thank you.
Wow, thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Brenda Kubeka-Chauke. Thank you so much for your insightful and informative, very, very instructive and thought-provoking presentation. If you can just close the slide from your side, I think they've taken now your particulars. They should have. So I think we can close it so that we can go back to the main room. But yeah, wonderful. Thank you so much. Very, very, very informative, as I'm saying. You've really illuminated us. Powerful. Thank you. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, now it's the time for questions and comments and engagements to the speaker. You can do that by raising your hand or via chat room. Because we are all leaders here, we always encourage people to talk if you are able, unless really you are not in a position to talk. If you are able to show your video as you are talking, that will be much appreciated. So as the colleagues are coming, my sister, Dr. Brenda, in your research, what is the level of divide or inequality between the rural people and the urban people in terms of health, in relation to the food they're eating? Obviously, I know that in olden days, probably our grandparents, our ancestors, they lived longer because of what they used to eat and because of the lifestyle they used to live. Is it still like that now? The obesity and all these lifestyle diseases, do you find them mostly on urban areas and even maybe on more on the, on the educated people rather than the people in the rural areas? What have you found there?
Okay, no, thank you for the question. So I don't have the stats. Yes, I don't have the stats, the exact stats, but the access, one, it's issues around access to fast foods and the ability to afford fast food, so that will have an influence. And then secondly, it's also where people stay. I mean, for me, I came from KZN. My first job in Johannesburg was in Soweto, and I was so shocked when I saw, the people that I was working with, what they brought for lunch, and also before they knock off at 7, they're talking about buying a quarter or whatever and stuff like that. And it took me some time to actually understand why some of these practices are the way they are, like fat cooks and whatever. In KZN, I'm used to we cook and stuff. Then I realized that where I come from, the distance between town and the township and town it's basically like a 15 minutes ride. And then I looked at the people that I was working with who either taking like 2, 3 taxis, and spending a lot of time on the road, or taking a train, but spending a lot of time on the road and not having adequate time to actually prepare good food. And then again, the food that contributes to obesity tends to be cheaper than, especially if we're thinking of, what we buy from the shops. It tends to be cheaper compared to nutritious food. And then we go to the rural areas. So the environment where people are at, I mean, they walk a lot, etc. But there's also now that decrease in the level of sustenance farming, and now buying the food, etc. So that will also have an impact on the quality of the food, etc. But if you look at the older people, they are fit and healthy, they walk, they still eat traditional food. And I mean, right now at home, and someone that is assisting us at home, she doesn't eat vegetables. She refuses, and she's saying they remind her of poverty. So there's different factors that actually influence the quality of food that people eat, including advertisements and how the food sounds in the ear and smells.
Thank you very much. Wow, yes, indeed, uh, there'll be that kind of food that sometimes when we eat, and it will remind us certain time, and then we feel that, hey man, I've eaten a lot of this when I was still young, but now I cannot really continue eating it. So let's just take our colleagues there. As I said, colleagues, even if this is your first time in this platform, you are really more than welcome to ask or engage the speaker. We are all leaders here, and we would like to talk. Let me take first Usiswezi. We'll start with Siswezi Koza, and then Siswezi will be followed by Dr. Chuma Mangisa, in that order, please. If maybe we can just take them, and then we'll respond to both of them, Sis Brenda. Over to you, Siswezi.
Thank you very much, Prof. And thank you very much, Dr. Brenda. This is so illuminating, but at the same time, it's I'm not sure how much do we catch up with these initiatives or these inventions, especially where AI is concerned, and as far as us in South Africa are concerned. I just want to find out, pardon me if my question, I don't know, sounds, I don't know how, but stupid. How much do we consider healthcare biases in AI if we take into consideration the racial, ethnic, and cultural disparities, especially where the Black population is concerned. I'm saying this with respect to body stature. We know how our skeletal body composition is made up of, in as far as differences are concerned between Caucasians and Blacks, and also the beliefs that which we have, not only comparing Europeans and Blacks, but Blacks themselves, because we are so different. I mean, you look at how our culture is in South Africa compared to Nigeria, Sudan, Guinea-Bissau, and all of those areas. The question is, how much deep does a bias go in identifying these disparities according to those categories I mentioned: racial, ethnic, and cultural? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Siswezi. And then we take Dr. Mangisa. Over to you, my brother.
Yes, no, thank you. Thank you so much, Prof. Majola, and thank you to Dr. Kubeka Chauke. An excellent, presentation. It's an eye-opener. And it also cautions us, that even if we think of not consulting physical, medical practitioner and decide to use AI, for diagnosis, there is an element of error, that has been displayed in your presentation, to say, let us be careful, even if we are, too trusty of AI. The question for me, I looked at your slide, the slide that speaks to diagnosing South Africa, where you are talking of inequality from two perspectives, the public health system and the South Africa's socio-economic system. Now, what strikes me here, is right at the bottom of that slide. It says the public health system, it is servicing 80% of the population. And by implication, therefore, it means the private sector may be servicing only 20% of the population of South Africa. And the same private sector, it has more resources compared to, the public health system. And at some point in time, there was a talk of NHI, which, amongst other things, has, or politicians or our leaders have actually observed this inequality that you are speaking about. And they then said, perhaps the National Health Insurance scheme or strategy will then assist, in trying, to make sure that there is decrease in terms of this 82% inequality from the health perspective. Now, the question is for me, what is your view of the NHI as a system, when we are talking to these two perspectives? I know there are those who are very vocal, who are talking opposite of what the government is trying to do here, especially when I'm looking at this very slide that I'm talking to. And then the second question, perhaps it speaks to how best AI can complement the National Health Insurance Strategy so that it deals with these high levels of inequality. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much to Siswezi and Dr. Mangisa. Over to you, Sis Brenda.
Okay. So I'll start with Dr. Wezi, the questions around bias, whether cultural, racial, et cetera, et cetera. I think the starting point is if we look at healthcare, let me not start with healthcare. Health education, the curriculum is Western based. The colleagues that are here, I can see my leaders, some of them are here. The textbooks that we actually use are based on white people. If we talk about even just during COVID, when the oxygen level is low, we know that we should be looking for bluish discoloration of the mouth, etc., etc. But if you look at Prof. Majola, I'm wondering how that bluish should actually look on him, versus someone with a fair skin color. So it also starts there. The biases actually start there. The bodies that you see also, on those atlases and training manuals, it also starts, it actually starts there. So again, who is behind the curriculum, who designed the curriculum, and then we adopted that and we actually use those books that have also, eliminated some of the darker skinned people issues. Then when it comes to AI, if AI is built on that, so you are basically, again, have designed out, how to diagnose certain conditions on people with certain skin color, etc. If you talk about the build and how we're built differently, and we look at what we call a body mass index, which is the BMI that looks at the weight and also the height, and taking into account that, as African, women would have hips and maybe bigger lower bodies, etc., compared to the Caucasian counterparts. So that also will have an impact on how, let's say if there was care that gets automated and allocated based on BMI. So it will, increase those disparities and maybe also perpetuate, the thing of, certain group of people don't take care of themselves, they're obese, etc., without taking some of those differences into account. And then what worsens it is that we import AI tools, more so in healthcare. So when we import tools that have been trained on foreign data that doesn't look like us. Hence, it's important for the leaders to ensure that there are mechanisms in place of retraining the tools using local data, of having a feedback loop mechanism that looks at what has changed, what needs to be changed, what needs to be addressed on a continuous basis, not just adopt, deploy, and just let it run. So I'm hoping that I've answered you on those issues. So again, when we import, it's important that we are intentional when it comes to localizing whatever that we've imported to make sure that it serves the population of the country. And then the issues around NHI, I see someone was here, my leader was here. I'm tempted to ask him to respond, Dr. Masuku, on NHI, if he doesn't mind. But I'm a proponent of NHI. But again, more so of universal health coverage. NHI is a funding mechanism, and universal health coverage, basically, it guarantees equal access to care, and at the same time with a focus of reducing the out-of-pocket payments. So from my side, I'm a proponent of universal health coverage, and I do think that AI and digital transformation has a huge role to play in advancing access, and also using it to reduce disparities, and making sure that those who need the care actually get it, versus what is happening right now. If I bump my big toe on the chair, I can get a CT scan and an MRI scan today at a private facility. But we're talking, there are patients that have been waiting for 3 months, 6 months for orthopedic surgery with their with those services not being available or readily available to them because there are no adequate human resources. Dr. Masuk. Okay. Okay, I was hoping he was going to add maybe a thing or two. So yes, I'm a proponent of NHI, and my warning from my side is if we look at the 80% of the country that is dependent on the public healthcare system, that is overburdened, that doesn't have enough, human resources, etc. We are interconnected. So if that amount of the country, let's say, were to get sick and they are ill, that has an impact on the productivity of the country. But that said, we also need to acknowledge what is not working and what needs to be addressed in the public health system as well. And then we look at the expenditure in the private sector. Some of it is driven by high utilization of services that should not, like I shouldn't be getting an MRI for bumping my big toe or a CT scan for that. So there are also elements of wastage because there is access and options are many. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Brenda. Thanks a lot. I also did see my brother there, Dr. Bandile Masuku. I think is still here. Can we hijack you, Dr. Masuku, just to say a few things about NHI, if you don't mind, please? Probably still busy with something. We'll come back to him. Let's continue with I see my sister then, Ntombi Mkoyi. Over to you, Ntombi. Over to you.
Good evening to everyone. Thank you so much, Dr. Brenda, for such an insightful presentation. You spoke about the valuable parts of AI, but you also alluded to how third world countries can become vulnerable in that we then follow what is the root of AI, and we don't question, we don't use our own kind of knowledge and pace, so we don't direct it, but it directs us. So what kind of maybe caution do you have maybe as a call to action to leaders in that, because there won't be anyone protecting us as third world countries or developing countries and things like that. And the same for rural areas or townships or, the inequalities that exist. So my concern is who can protect in terms of the safety of AI. There are a lot of things that AI can do, good and negative, such like manipulation of pictures, and people don't know what is true anymore, what is not true. There's fake news. And so this is the first time actually that youth will know more than the older generation. And also looking at Ogogo, who are looking after youth and are caregivers or the guardians, and they are not brought in, they are not capacitated in terms of AI. So the main question is, what is the call to action to leaders, and not only government leaders, but even leaders in communities, in schools and in different levels of community in terms of cautioning, and what are the cautions? The second question is, how do we bring along and keep the wisdom of intergenerational wisdom in the developments of AI, making sure that our older generation do not get left behind, but their wisdom is still acknowledged in the development of society and everything else. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Sis Ntombi. Thank you. Over to you, Sis Brenda.
Yeah, no, quite a number of interesting questions. So the first one is who should protect us? So we're talking about upstream factors, which is AI policy. And I do believe that we need to advocate for that. And one, excuse me, one, it's issues around just the Bill of Rights and how AI can actually disrupt that, how AI is disrupting democracies, etc. So the risk is huge. And for me, it starts with, advocating for AI policy. I mean, we saw the EU, they're tightening things. So if they tighten and there's the products will come to the global south. The US, the US, no AI policy for the next 10 years. So it's free for all, and and data that is being used. If you follow what's going on there, the data that is being used, personal data for things that are that should be of concern. You apply for a job and it interconnects, and your who you're married to, your ICT, but what do you call it, the credit score, and who do you owe, and what loan do you have, etc., etc. Even if you are paying your loans regularly on time, etc., etc. So the risk is huge. One, it's how it's threatening democracy. As you were saying right now, issues around misinformation. I mean, today we're just looking at AI bots on TikTok that are doctors, that fake doctors. Basically, they don't exist. They are generated by AI and giving information, etc., etc. Not everyone has tech literacy and and health literacy. Not everyone knows what is wrong, what is right. I mean, we saw it during COVID. So how else do we protect the vulnerable, knowing what we know? Issues around health literacy in the country is very low. Digital divide, as in the understanding of tech. And also, I think what is also biting us, there's evidence that shows that we are a country that communicates better using memes. And you can imagine also if we love the memes, so all these AI tools that make babies drink beer and whatever and stuff like that. So that is what we're going to see. And that is what will also influence, like will have social impact of normalizing things that we should not be, accepting. But because the children, I mean, they use phones very early, they're on social media, that's what they will see. Older people laughing at these things, and so they seem to be acceptable and appropriate. So for me, the first one is it's AI policy, that regulations that we need in the country, and then secondly, it's the issues around AI literacy. Especially to people that are decision makers, to people that can influence etc. So I think we can start there, and then the role of people like yourself that work in ethics, that understand the social impact of let's say technology, etc., that understands that that wisdom of elderly people. How do you bring it in, and how do you have their voices actually elevated when algorithms are designed, etc., etc. I think for me, that is what we need, that policy, and then also the improvement of health literacy, and also just to have ambassadors and people that talk about AI, but using simple language, and also using the examples that we see, when you hear, Elon Musk selling shares of whatever, and that is not true, but it looks so true, it sounds, it's his voice, etc. And for me, that's the biggest threat to democracy, And I mean, living in an era where you don't know what's true and what's not, that will be detrimental. So that's why I think regulations are more important than anything else.
Lovely. Thank you, Dr. Sure.
Thank you very much, Dombi, Doctor. Thank you so much. So I must say that I'm still very haunted by that slide. I think it was talking about the price of inequality. It's so painful, man. It's just, it cuts deeper to say that when you look at those factors that really, And thank you for really illuminating us on this area, because whenever we think about inequality, we just think about, but we don't really take into cognizance that there are so many errors and factors that are involved when it comes to inequality. And so sad that our country, as you said, is #1 in the world. There was a time when Brazil was #1, South Africa was second, but now South Africa has overtaken Brazil. We wish we would have overtaken with positive stuff, not negative stuff when it comes to inequality. But thank you so much. I can see that Dr. Mangisa wants to come back there. Over to you, Dr. Mangisa.
No, thanks, thanks, Prof, and thanks to Dr. Kubheka Chauke. I am just thinking aloud here, Dr. Kubheka Chauke. You can correct me if I'm thinking far ahead of myself or of the country for that matter. You find, I will refer to my mother, for instance. She goes to a public hospital now and again, with the same illnesses, that would bother, women of her age, 85 and so forth, 85 years of age. But because we are talking about AI now, I am wondering, if a possibility exists, especially in the public sector, that because my mother and others, you have been coming to this hospital for this illnesses or that illness, in terms of predicting what she may suffer in the future, because they have this information, about her. She has been coming here, rather than waiting for her to come with that illness after 2 years. Can we not use AI, to begin to predict, to say, but we have your history now. You have been coming here for more than 5 years. This is what's likely gonna be impacting you in the next 2, 3 years, 4 years. Let's deal with that, rather than waiting until you present yourself. By that time, the challenge has expounded, and perhaps it may even be difficult, to get cure for it. Am I thinking too much? Am I thinking too far ahead of myself? Dr. Kubheka Chauke, your comment. Thank you so much.
Okay. No, thank you for that question. So there's definitely value in big data, because the historical data can be analyzed. It can predict, service demand. It can predict, service demands from, let's say, a particular group of patients. It can also assist to engage and intervene with specific groups of people. But the reality that we have in South Africa, if you think of even in the public sector, the public sector, it's mostly medical records are mostly paper-based. And they're mostly paper-based, then it becomes difficult to actually analyze and get value from big data. I know that they are rolling out some electronic, medical records and stuff. I think in the future, there's definitely value that can come from that, whether we're talking, communicating directly, or allocating services, or identifying, as you are saying, proactively, like patients who need social support, etc., etc. The value to be extracted is there, but the input is reliable big data, which currently as a country we don't have. If we look at the private sector, they've been, especially medical aid industry, they've been collecting data let me say, storing data forever and ever. But the data that is there, it's not data or information that is reflective of patient encounters, but it's more of the claims data, that the information that is submitted to pay the claim, you know. So even if there is that data, but there's also limitations because it's not collecting information on demographics. Is it an elderly person that stays on her own, you know, et cetera, et cetera. But it's more on the claims data, which have limitations. But if you were to think of it in a South African context, and we import, let's say, a tool to deploy in the country, let's say maybe a tool to automate, you know, decision making for who gets the kidney for a kidney transplant, you know. So that deficiency in data will have an impact on those automated decisions, because those that don't reflect, remember it's only the 20%, those that don't reflect may be designed out because their data is not there. So no data, you don't exist. And if we look at the private medical aid and membership by racial groups, less than 10% it's Black Africans. Actually, less than 10%, actually less than 9% of Black Africans are members of a medical aid scheme. And then the next one, it's a colored. It's about 25% of the colored population are on medical aid. And then if we move to Indian, it's about 43%. And then if you move to the white population, it's more than 75%. So now you start to understand why there is a need for an ethics and a justice and a human rights-based approach to deploying AI, understanding the context of South Africa and how that can impact on disparities and maybe if actually even exacerbate them.
Powerful. Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Brenda. Thank you. If I may ask, probably, let's just say maybe the last question. What is your observation, Dr. Brenda, when it comes to ethical leadership in the healthcare sector, whether in the private hospitals or private care, obviously which are pushing more profit, in the public sector, we are struggling with resources. But what is the range there? And if I can ask you, as you answer that question, and also give us your closing remarks. And after that, I will ask my professor there, Professor Gordon Zide, to thank the speaker, and then we close the session. Over to you, my sister.
Thank you. That's a very unfair question. But I think I'm sitting in a privileged position because we do some capacity work, leadership capacity, mainly focusing on, on governance in the public healthcare sector. And it's difficult to say much about how, ethical the leaders are. The context is so different. So the context matters because of the context may enable or disable even people with good characters, So it's not an easy question to answer, but then at the same time, there's also issues around personal interest and everything that you know and that we read about. And I'm fortunate I've been in the private sector for a very long time. Similar things happen in the private sector, but they don't find themselves in the newspapers. Honestly, there's collusion, there's things that are also happening on the other side. I think the main thing is, if we talk about ethics, it's virtue ethics, like the character of the leaders. And it's so unfortunate that the leaders that are virtuous, that find themselves in environments where it's so difficult to do the right thing, they actually suffer, from moral distress which has an impact also on their mental health, et cetera, et cetera. So I do believe, based on my experience, that there are good people in the public sector that are doing and trying their best and finding themselves sometimes, even the practitioners, having to provide a service or make a decision around what is not there, but a decision has to be made, etc. So that context for me is quite key. And then there's also other external pressures that also come into play that also makes it difficult for people to actually do the right thing. So when I engage, I talk about the importance of obviously of one, it's the character, and then two, the ethical decision making, etc. And then three, issues around courage, moral courage, but being responsible or about around how you exercise moral courage. We've seen the whistleblowers, they're unemployed, they are broke, their kids are out of private schools, they don't have medical aid, etc. That's the reality. So from the outside, we may look and say, you're not saying anything, you're part of it, and stuff. But what is important is also that acknowledgement of there's still that responsibility around, personal security and safety. And it's said that we have to have such conversations, with leaders, especially in such a critical space where humanity and and life should be central to everything that we actually do.
Thank
And
you.
again,
And your parting shot?
yeah.
Go ahead, my sister. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to say in the private sector, again, it's issues around the character of individuals. And again, there's always competing interest, the profits and the right thing. But ethical organizations, because they have ethical culture, they put what they promised to the society that will provide you with the right care, etc., at the forefront, and not driving profits, because driving profits and not taking care of the right thing to do has an impact on the trust that the people will have, that you go in that facility, you'll get an operation even if you don't need it. They will lose clients, it won't be sustainable. So yes, from my side, firstly, just thanking you for inviting me. And I want to say to the leaders that leadership is about influence and leadership is about responsibility. It is about responsibility. And when it comes to ethical leadership, it's also important to have some accountability, mechanism in place, and also to make sure that you also take care of yourself whilst you're being responsible. But your responsibility as a leader goes beyond the four walls of your, whether your private practice or your organization or your business. There's a huge responsibility that you owe the society and also future generations. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I saw a hand was floating around. I don't know if it was a mistake or something from a certain individual there. I couldn't notice who was there. We don't want to deny people the opportunity, but obviously, if we are done and if we are all happy, that is fun. Can I then ask my professor there, Professor Zide, to close to thank the speaker, then we close the session. Over to you, my professor.
Okay, thank you very much, my professor. Am I audible? Dr. Brenda, can you hear me? Am I audible?
We can hear you, my professor. We can hear you.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Go ahead,
No,
sir.
thank you so much.
Yes,
Okay, thank you very, very much. Dr. Brenda, I've got quite a number of adjectives to describe your presentation, which I found to be very insightful, very instructive, informative, motivational, and of course, inspiring. You know, we have had quite a number of presentations on leadership. But I think it is, for me, certainly the first time that I've had a leadership from a health perspective. And so not only have you empowered us on leadership and about its 4 pillars of sustainability, ethical leadership, transparency, and accountability, but over and above that, your presentation gave us an opportunity, as you rightly pointed out, to look at the South African constitutional values with a different lens, and a lens that speaks from the leadership perspective. You know, as you went on with your presentation, you touched on several issues, but I was quite just like everybody else. When you spoke about the price of inequity, I think for us, we, as Professor Majola indicated earlier, that for quite some time we've been taking inequity as well. You know, it's the differentiation between blacks and whites, and so be it. And we've come to live with it. But your presentation, having mentioned that inequity is some kind of a cancer, it starts very small and it grows bigger and bigger. And how I wish that the government of the day could have been part of this presentation. I know that we do have, you know, government officials, but certainly for me, that inequity is some kind of cancer, and there's a big price to pay for inequity. I think that really counts a lot. And thanks to you, Doc, for highlighting, you know, these kinds of disparities which we have been taking for granted. But most particularly, the importance of artificial intelligence. You know, I was very impressed when you stated that, yes, it is important, but we should not do away with the human factor. That the AI, important as it is, but there is always the human side of everything else. And when you closed off mentioning the importance of Ubuntu, you know, I said Ubuntu from a health perspective, because sometimes when you go to particularly public hospitals, you'll find a totally different approach from some health professionals. But listening to you, I said to myself, how I wish the government of the day could probably make you the DG of the country for health services, so that under your watch, there could be a great improvement. And I think those that are listening from government will carry this request, humble request from me, to say, you should really be our next DG for health, if we are to quote Jim Collins, to grow from good to great. We can only grow from good to great if we are led by leaders of your caliber. Let me close off, Doc, in thanking you by saying, you know, I always like reading the works of the late Leo Buscaglia, that Italian-American motivational speaker, would always conclude his speeches by saying, only you can make the difference. And so allow me, therefore, to close by saying, Dr. Brenda, only you can make the difference. And I thank you so much. Thank you very, very much, my professor, for the opportunity given to me to thank Dr. Brenda, which I so do with all humility. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, my professor. Thanks a lot for those kind words. Yes, my sister, Dr. Brenda, Again, I did say in my opening remarks that we love you, we admire you, the work you do, we appreciate you, we respect you, and we wish you all the best. And once again, thank you so much for your sacrifice, your humility, just to take your time to accommodate us. And we wish we will also invite you in the very near future, because there's so much to be discussed and also to be learned from the sector that you presented to us. So once again, thank you so much for addressing us, for empowering us and inspiring us tonight as the community of leaders. Thanks, my sister. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us tonight, especially to those who joined us for the first time. Thank you. And please do join us again next week, Wednesday. We meet every Wednesday, same time, same place, same login details, same everything. And we'll always learn something. There is no way you'll attend our platform and you don't learn something. So thank you. And we hope to see you again next week, Wednesday. The session is adjourned now until we meet again next week, Wednesday. Thank you so much. May God bless you. And may God bless our continent, Africa. Kosi sigalela Africa. Thank you so much until we meet again. Bye.
Bye.